Testani, CEO of Intelligent Audit. As an organization for this context, we really exist to work with anyone who ships, and we take their global transportation data. So just think about what that means. It's hundreds of carriers across the world, all modes. So courier, parcel, less than truckload, air, ocean, rail, all of that data. And we work with the carriers who send that data to us, which again comes in many disparate sources, and all of the KPIs are going to look different depending on the mode. We take all of that data, we centralize it, and then we really say, what did the shipper do, and then what should they have done, as well as all of the audit and the actual, the cost allocations that have to happen. So in terms of AI, and if you had asked me this 6 weeks ago, I'd give you a very different answer than I am right now, which is an important caveat because the world is changing very, very quickly, and you need to adapt. A couple of years ago, I would say focus on data governance. AI is coming, but it's not here, and just get yourself ready. But it's here, and it's here in a way that can really be driving impact to every organization. Different scales, but I'll talk about that. So when I think about AI, and I always do this, I break it up into two main components. One, how do I get it to do what humans couldn't do before? So where is the real innovation, which is really important because AI, and what AI really is it's artificial intelligence. It is computers that have the ability to think like humans do. They have neural network, which means they can take and make inferences. They can be impactful. They can make decisions that we can. So there is a lot that AI can do that humans can't do. We cannot compute fast enough. We need breaks. We need to eat. We need sleep. Computers don't. So from an innovations perspective, AI is going to truly transform what humans can do because it can do things that we can't do. And I think that we should talk more about that. And just to briefly talk about that, what AI does really well from an innovations perspective is manage a lot of data and then make many decisions off of it. But for AI to work from a true innovations perspective, you need to have your own data science teams. You can rarely rely on any third-party systems because you need to really do something that is outside of just Gen AI. But it's machine learning, it's heavy computing, it is deep learning, which is on top of machine learning. And what we've done there that I think I can give you our example, and then you can think about your company. So because of how I describe our company, we receive so much data. We have customers that ship millions of shipments a week. So, Excel doesn't support that. They need a technology that can take this data, normalize it, cleanse it, and then where AI shines is they can take millions of data points in any given time, which again, it's a week. So this can think about a year, it's hundreds of millions of records, and it can find those anomalous patterns. So without any kind of human intelligence saying, tell me when this happens, it's saying, I'm going to consume all of this data. And when something happens that I couldn't predict, I'm making you aware of it. Banks have deployed this. So anytime you receive a fraud detection alert, it's because banks are learning everything about you individually. And when something happens that's atypical, it's saying, I couldn't predict this. I'm going to make you aware of it. It is also what is, allowed for great inventory management, because it could just say, I am seeing new data, and it's showing me that I'm going to be missing data in the future. So I'm going to automatically make a decision to get more information. So it is really good at doing what humans cannot do at scale. I mean, technically, you could have tens of thousands of people looking for fraudulent activities, and they'll find it, but it's not sustainable. So there is a lot that we can do from innovations perspective. And the question I would ask myself then, if I'm in anyone's position, is when the answer that I would say before is no to can we do this, I would stop and say, well, what would have to be true for that to be a yes? So could I actually solve new problems? And AI might be that yes. Then there is productivity. And this is where every single company can and should and really has to be using AI now. Because if you're not leveraging it from an efficiency perspective, you are going to lose to your competitors. It is night and day what AI can do now. So we're incorporating it in every part of our organization. We used to have one data science team that would just work with all of our teams and say, how do we help you? What do you do today? How do we help you run faster? What we're doing now, and what we spent the last almost 2 months doing, is we have trained all of our engineers to now be able to use AI tools. But then in terms of organizational structure, what we found is engineers can now run really fast. So we used to take them 6 months to create an alpha product. They can do in days because they become the code reviewer. So now the missing gap was that we didn't have the product team ready to give them feedback quickly enough. And what we found is the winning success going forward is a much smaller ratio between engineers and product. So if it used to be 1 product person to 8 engineers, now we're looking at a 1-to-2 ratio because they crank out code so quickly, but they're still engineers. They don't know what needs to happen. So the faster they can get more feedback, the faster we can actually go from alpha to beta to general release. So that was a huge win. And it's really, that's been one part of it. So it's from a product roadmap perspective, we're just deploying so much faster. But then there's everyone else who was not an engineer that we're looking for win for. So you've heard this, expression of an MCP server, which what that really means is think about it like a Wikipedia or a Confluence document on steroids or an AI chatbot on steroids. What it allows you to do is connect multiple data sources together. And this is where you need both an expert and AI to be able to make that connectivity work. And then you're now empowering business users to do light engineering and to do light problem solving. So for example, for us, if we were onboarding a new customer, part of the implementation is figuring out all their cost allocation rules, all their GL rules, which is always beautiful on paper. They say if it's to a store, according to that store. If it's store to store, according to the receiving store. But then the data comes in and it's garbage. Or you see the actual rules in practice and they're like, hold on, that doesn't make sense. I need all these exceptions added, for example. So what we used to go through rounds of iteration between our implementation team, our product architect team, sometimes engineers can now go through the PM to begin with. They can say what the rules are, then the MCP will actually run through and try and create the rules, try and test itself, come back and say, here's what I think the rules should be, and then instantly talk to our customers to get feedback. So there's a lot of great use cases from an MCP server. And that's really, I think, the biggest unlock. So what I would question everyone who is listening to this to do is say, what are my data sources that I could be bridging together? So what teams report to me? How can those teams work together faster? And then once you figure out those data structures, what I would use to say is create data governance rules. Who are the stewards? What does clean data look like? You should still have that because you need experts. But this is where you can have AI do that first pass for you. Instead of having teams create the standards for every database, let AI do the first pass, and then the experts be the code reviewers, for example. But really think through what success would look like if you were to connect those databases together. And that's a massive unlock.
So I'm going to jump in here really quick because I think that unlock is huge. And I do still think there's a lot of skepticism still out of our practitioners where they even at the starting point, which is, hey, I got 8 different SAP instances because of merger acquisition activities, right? And just the simple differences in naming conventions of SKUs and whatnot. That right there is already a showstopper, right? So is that a matter of MCP connectors, or is that more of a matter of having an AI bot understand the 9 different instances and understand having the context of what this business is and what it does and what SKUs it has, and then be able to do the matchmaking to line it all up and make sure we don't have double duplicates?
So you have to start really small. Dream big, have a vision of where you want to get to, but start incredibly small because it's not, people say, you don't trust AI. People also make mistakes. And I think about your example, to your point, unit of records, the way we measure data will be disparate across every one of those SAP instances. In one case, we're going to say items, and that will be SKUs. Somewhere else will be pallets. Somewhere else will be shipments. So systems won't connect, easily to each other. Start really small, connect 2 of them together, and then have a unique problem you want to solve. And then you really need to have experts guiding it, doing a lot of iterative testing. So then don't try and have this massive project where you can't see a win quickly. You need to be able to start small with unique problem statements and then solve them. And then everyone needs to see that solve. And then you get bigger and bigger. And what you'll see there, the beauty of that is you now have everyone seeing the win. And it's not taking them a year to get there. It's taking them days and weeks. And then they become comfortable iterating. So from our perspective, what we did, we created one team, and it was about, it was a small 5 to 10 people. And we said, okay, solve one problem. They solved it so quickly. And then they kept building and building and building. And we said, okay, your new goal, when we gave them a quarter to do this, is for that team to be non-existent by the end of the quarter, because they've trained everyone else to be successful. But we had to first waste our energy creating that team. Was a great innovation, great opportunity. The waste was successful, which is what we did. And it turned out to be a good bet. And now that team demoed it to everyone else. Then you can see their heads turning. In every one of those calls, they're like, oh, could I, how do I? And then we gave them the ability to run with it. And then they were comfortable going with it and then running wild. So it's scary. It is hard to vet out. There's, it's hard to QA it, but that's because we dream very big. Again, I would, you have a 15-month-old, that eventually they're going to go, play a sport and be great at it. Start small, dribble, let them feel the win of liking the sport. And then you build to perfection. But this is an example where it is, we've been burned by it. We're confused by it. No one really gets how it works. It's like a bunch of fugazi. You listen to, everyone talk about AI and it's like this doomsday. So like, don't let yourself get there. Start really, really small and then just let it expand.